Probably not going to try to do any of the internal ones because a lot of the problems with doing some of these small ones is while we're dissecting, we tear the latex so it looks like it's all branching off and it gets very difficult. So if I do any of the ones in the arm, it's going to be like obvious ones, okay? Like it's not going to be any question about it, okay? So what is C?
Trachea.
Okay, how do you know that's the trachea, not the esophagus?
Because the esophagus is under.
Has rings, right. Good. Okay, and again, for D, what was that? Gallbladder, right?
okay.
And you notice, like I picked one where the gallbladder was just about falling out of the liver almost. So it's obvious. All right? Any questions on those? Think you might see some of those again? If you follow the that part of the heart.
Superior vena cava.
Okay, if it was a vena cava, would it be red?
Blue.
Oh, it's red.
Brachiocephalic.
Yeah.
No. What's the artery called that carries up the blood from the heart up to your head?
Carotid.
Boom. Okay.
That's the carotid.
It's the common carotid.
Threw me off because it wasn't on there.
Okay. See how it comes off the arch?
I almost put that.
Okay. All right. So if that's the carotid, what's B? I already heard it.
Superior vena cava.
Okay. For that one, your book calls it cranial vena cava, whatever. I learned it superior. I've never actually seen it called cranial. Whatever's easiest for you to remember, I'll know what you're talking about. Okay. C, what is that lobe?
Quadrate.
No.
Right medial. Quadrate.
Quadrate. Okay. So the way you can tell is if the gallbladder sits right in there. Okay? Sits right by the quadrate. Okay, so then if that's the quadrate, which is the middle, what's this one?
Left medial.
Left medial, and then which one is that?
Left lateral.
Right. So that's D. Now the other ones, so which one would this be?
Right medial.
All right. So it's kind of weird how it works, but I picked one that was good. So these other lobes, the left lateral sits kind of almost underneath. Okay, it's not as pronounced as this one, obviously, right? And
The right lateral?
Or I'm sorry, the right lateral. Did I say left? I'm sorry. And then this one underneath would be the
Caudate.
right. Okay. So, in all actuality, do you think I'm really going to be able to get to like the right lateral and caudate to be able to make it so you guys can see it? Yeah, I don't think so either. A is
Oh, it's clean.
right. Okay. And what about B?
Greater omentum.
Okay, good. What do we call that in general? Mesentery, right? The greater and lesser omentum are the mesentery. Okay. C. What lobe of that is that of the lung?
Cranial right.
Right, cranial. All right. What about D?
Accessory.
Accessory, right. And which side of the lungs? Yeah, it's associated with the right side. Remember, I said that. I was saying that last week. I said that almost to everybody. I think that even though it looks like it's associated with sometimes with the left or maybe in the middle, it's actually associated with the right lung. Okay, and why is the right lung bigger? Right, good. Okay, any questions on that one? I cut away part of it, so it should be obvious.
Where is A again?
No, A is in the red.
Yeah.
It's a giant,
With the descending aorta.
yeah, or just aorta. Okay. And one tell of that is it's sitting right by B, which is the what?
Inferior.
Inferior vena cava or caudal vena cava. Okay. All right. And then let's see, did I have a D on? Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay, good. Good. I just wanted to make sure I was right. Okay, C. These veins that run down the leg. What are those? Anybody? That was my big trick one.
Femoral.
Close.
Since we all said femoral.
That makes it right.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the iliac vein.
Iliac.
Okay. I have a way that I remember that, but it has to do with Greek mythology and
No, that's too
so yeah.
So, you want us to know that it's the external or is it
The
far?
external, the internals are down in here.
Yeah, so.
I'm not going to ask you internals, okay? Okay, so you have the vein, and then of course associated with the vein is always
Artery.
an artery, right? And it's the exact same, still the iliac artery.
Okay.
Okay, so if I do an aorta, it's going to look like this. And if you see a red vein that I've cut open and it's sitting right by that big blue thing, because they're always like right next to each other, right? You should know that that's the aorta. That's that big time artery that carries all the blood to your lower body from your heart. Okay, so why do you think maybe the walls of the arteries are a little bit thicker?
More pressure.
Right, there's a lot more pressure coming down those arteries, right, than there is coming back up. Okay? Any question? Oh, if I were to ask what these veins are that run into those organs, would you know what those are?
Renal.
Right.
What about
Good.
D? See,
Where
this
would
one.
D?
That was D.
Oh, sorry, D. Okay, what is that?
Ascending.
No. What is it? Look at where the pin is and what that
Duodenum.
material
want
looks like.
mesentery?
No,
What is the pancreas?
it's pancreas.
I think it's like pinned stupidly. I would pin it up there. Seriously.
That's
You
what
pin it
I
up here?
tried to do.
Oh, that's the duodenum then.
Yeah, this is the pancreas.
Okay.
'Cause it's in
See?
like the
It's-
more mesenteric part.
Right. So actually, that would have been stupid for me to ask for the pancreas
Okay.
right there.
Okay.
Okay, so, and how can we tell that that's the pancreas? Okay, where is it in relation to the stomach, right? Okay, it's right as they're coming off the stomach, right associated with the small intestine, a certain part of the small intestine. And remember that what that looks like? It kind of looks like a glandular type material because it kind of is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that hard cartilaginous thing at the top of the esophagus. What is that?
Larynx.
Larynx. Okay, if I had a cat where that larynx was kind of popped off and it had like, you looked at it, it had like a little flap. Okay, good. All right, let's see which one, 5B. All right, I heard this earlier, so what do we call that? Where the brachiocephalic, right? So the way to remember that is you have the inferior or superior vena cava, okay, and then it splits, brachiocephalic towards the head, right? It's where it breaks off going up towards the head, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Because that's where it goes up into the jugular veins, okay? So brachio and then cephalic, okay? Is that was what, B? Let's see. Okay, what is that gland? Right, sits right underneath the ear. That big, massive one right underneath the ear. And what's the other one?
Submandibular.
Mandibular, right. I would have taken that. That's close enough for me. Mandibular. Now, keep in mind, there's some other veins, and different cats are going to have other, or it's going to look better. But there's like few veins. There's like 2 or 3 veins that are pretty obvious that I may ask you on the exam. I'm not sure yet, but there's like 2 of them. They have easy names, so they're really good, I think, test questions. Okay, I think that was the last one for that one. A.
Stomach.
Okay, yeah, I know. That's why I had
Really
it.
is.
But what do we call that big?
Fundus.
I'd have taken that. I heard greater curvature. Right. Okay. Now on the actual exam, like there are some things like a spleen or pancreas that I would just obviously just want spleen and pancreas because we didn't talk about different parts.
Specific.
I would be on the exam. And you guys know that. I would say what part of is this of the stomach? Or if I wanted just stomach, I'd say name the organ. Right? So even with stuff like the pancreas, I'll say name the organ. Okay, that way there's no confusion. But if I say like name this specific part, okay. And that's why we're doing this. It's just practice. Okay, and let's see. So we have this other part of the stomach. It's almost right at the start of the small intestine. What is that? Pylorus, right. Okay, duodenum is part of the small intestine. That first part.
So do they have
So-
a sphincter there?
Yeah,
That's
that's
what I
right. That's where the
put.
pyloric sphincter is, and I would take that.
Okay.
Okay. Exactly. I would totally take that. That region is called the pylorus. But if you got pyloric sphincter, that's totally good for me. Okay. So remember, I said if I were to talk or ask questions about regions of the intestine, it would be ridiculously obvious where it was, right? Okay. So obviously C is what, about 3 inches off the stomach. Okay, so you're not going to get that confused with a colon, I hope, okay, or anything else. All right, so, right, the duodenum, and then what's this? What's the other section closer to the colon, which starts here?
Jejunal
Right. Remember, we're not separating jejunum and ileum. Your book just calls it jejuno-ileum. Just combine them. Jejuno-ileum. Okay. And I'll always do it because I'm just following with that what your book does. And I think maybe make it a little bit easier. Okay. Because when they're all wound around like this, it's hard to tell. Okay. So if I'm going to ask that, it's going to be this one's like coming right off the stomach, or it's right by the colon. And I picked it obviously because that's the colon, right? What do we call this part up here of the colon? Yep. Okay. Okay. So what is A?
atrium.
Close.
Oh, look.
What does it look? What's the shape kind of look like? Remember we talked about that. I said that in class last time. I remember that's why I asked it. It kind of looks like an ear.
Oh.
Auricle, right? Auricle, right?
Oops.
Okay. So the auricles sit on top, and the left one on this is over here, but it's not very obvious. Some of yours are more obvious, I saw last week. Okay, so obviously since this B is on the right side and it's not down towards the bottom, what is that?
Right atrium.
Right atrium, right? And again, I'm not going to be putting pins, like 15 different pins in all these, so look at the region, you know where atriums are in relation to ventricles, okay? All right, C. What is that structure that comes off the heart?
The aortic arch.
Aortic arch, right? All you have to do is see in there that it's red, comes out of the heart, and it actually makes that arch, and then the arteries that go up to the head, right? Okay.
Medulla.
Yeah, you guys should have known that was coming from when I gave the lecture. Okay. B, what do we call those little tree things?
Arbor vitae.
Okay.
I just
right?
wrote cerebellum.
Me too. I thought you wanted the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'd have probably taken that. I'll take that for this, but obviously on the exam, like you know how I did it before, it'd be like, what is those? I don't know. Tree. Well, I probably wouldn't say tree-like.
Oh yeah.
What is that arbor vitae?
White matter, maybe?
I could say white matter,
Similar to
or I could say something about name that part of that structure,
A specific
something like
part.
that. Yeah. But just for this, because this is just practice, Okay. C.
Lateral ventricle.
Right. Good.
What is it?
Lateral.
Lateral ventricle.
Lateral ventricle.
Okay. Why is it lateral? It's on the side, right? Okay, the third ventricle runs down in here, but of course that's really difficult because it's always destroyed down in there, okay? But there is another ventricle that sits right underneath the cerebellum. Which one is that?
Fourth ventricle.
Right. Okay, so you got the fourth, the third, and the lateral. Where's 1 and 2? Or
Yeah.
okay. The answer to that is there's an optic ventricle and a cerebral ventricle, and you would actually have to cut them to do it. Okay, so you don't have to worry about those. So if I've already said that the third ventricle is pretty much destroyed most of these, but I've given you the left and I've given you the fourth already in a practical. I think one of those two might be on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good shot, I'd say it's 50-50 that the other one would be on
D
there.
is.
Oh wait, D. Okay, you guys know that, right?
Yeah.
What's the other part called?
Gyrus.
Okay, good. You guys better get that one.
Olfactory.
No.
Optic
Optic
nerve.
nerve. Okay,
Oh, that's the olfactory.
right. What are these?
Olfactory bulbs.
Olfactory
All right. Good. Okay, B. You guys know what those nerves are? They're the obvious ones. When we did this, I said those are ridiculously awesome. They're not awesome. They're not awesome.
Ocular motor.
Obvious. Sorry. Ocular motor. All right. Just think. The way you can think about that is those big nerves that you see right below either the infundibulum or immediately behind the optic nerves. Optic, ocular, little association. Okay, C we've had before.
Infundibulum.
Right. And there's a certain type of gland that hooks up to that.
Hypophysis.
Yep. Okay, and what's D? That's a part of the brain. Yep. Pons. Okay. And the reason why I picked that is because you can kind of see the division between that and the medulla. Okay, so it's easy. It has a specific shape. So I wanted to make sure you guys, give you something
So
to
A you
see.
said was optic nerve, right?
Yes. Or, I'm sorry, 10. A. What is that?
Cerebellum.
Right. Body of the cerebellum. Remember, it sits right on top of the brain, right? If you put body of cerebellum, you can say that too, because it actually does go inside. Okay, what about B? Optic lobe, right? Remember, it goes cerebral hemispheres, okay, where the olfactory tracts hook up. Then you have the optic lobe, and then the cerebellum sitting on top of that. Okay? All right. C, I hope you could see that. It was small. I probably should have done it on a bigger brain, but I figured optic chiasm. Okay. And if you probably are able to lift that up, you could probably see. Now, the hardest one I thought, okay, for the whole test, this part has like 3 different subdivisions. We don't have to worry about it. Anybody know what it is? Hypothalamus.
I have no idea what that
Hey, there had to be one that was like, I was like, huh? For this, I would give you credit for it, and you would totally get partial credit at least for the actual exam. So, all right, any question on that?